The nation's major hospitals are increasingly experiencing medical service disruption, including surgery delays, as trainee doctors walk out en masse. President Yoon says they should not take people's lives hostage to protest the medical reform. The family of a late Korean wartime forced labor victim receives compensation from Japan's Hitachi Zosen, in accordance with the 2018 Korean court ruling. It's the first time the victims have been compensated by a Japanese firm. Russian President Vladimir Putin reportedly presented a card to North Korea's Kim Jong-un, which South Korea condemns as a violation of UN Security Council resolutions. It's February 20th, 2024. This is Newscenter. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. Medical disruption looms large in the nation tonight as thousands of junior doctors started leaving their workplaces today to protest the medical reform. For more, we connect live with our reporter Song Yoo-jin, who is at one of the hospitals in the capital where doctors have staged a walkout. Yoo-jin, what's it like there?
Well, Jong-min, I'm currently at the Severance Hospital in Seoul's Sinchon-dong, one of the 5 major hospitals here in Korea. And this hospital, alongside the Seoul St. Mary's Hospital, that's according to the Health Ministry, have seen the largest number of trainee doctors walk out today. As of 11 p.m. Monday, according to the Health Ministry, 6,415 trainee doctors, which is more than half of the trainee doctors in the country, 55% have submitted their resignation letters, though none have been officially accepted yet. Out of them, about a quarter of them, which is more than 1,600, have stopped working, having reportedly left their places of work. Now, this is causing concerns among a disruption to medical services here in the country, as trainee doctors are at the core of physicians who are carrying out emergency duties. As of 6 p.m. yesterday, 25 surgeries and 4 hospital appointment cancellations have been reported to the government. But these numbers will likely rise after today. Severance Hospital here normally carries out around 200 operations per day. However, it's reportedly planning to have the number of scheduled surgeries from tomorrow due to a lack of doctors. But as today is the first day of the strike, patients here whom I talked to said they've yet to experience disruptions or inconvenience. Take a listen.
I haven't sensed much change, but the ongoing strike does concern me. It could be a bit inconvenient for patients, especially for people like me who have to carve out time while working to attend appointments.
If it ends within the next month, then I won't be affected, but other people will unfortunately be. So.
Right, Eugene, but the concern is that the strike is expected to go on. I heard that the trainee doctors who submitted their resignation letters are holding a meeting today. What's the story there?
You're right, Tommy. So the Korea Intern and Resident Association began its closed-door emergency meeting at noon today. Around 90 of its members are currently taking part, and they will elect its Emergency Response Committee chairperson and also discuss what kind of measures they'll take in the future. They'll likely discuss legal responses against the government, as the government previously hinted at taking countermeasures and pressing charges on the doctors for doctors who do not comply to its return to work orders. Other key agenda items, including addressing the negative public opinion, as polls show that the general Korean public are for the government expansion of the medical school quota. That's all I have for now, but I'll be back with more updates once the meeting ends. Back to you, Jong-min.
That was our Song Yoo-jin live from Severance Hospital in Sinchon. Thank you. And President Yoon warns those doctors not to take people's lives hostage. The government has ordered some of the trainee doctors in essential fields to get back to their posts. Our presidential office correspondent Kim Do-yeon has latest.
As the tug-of-war continues between the South Korean government and the nation's doctors, President Yoon Suk-yeol hits back at the collective action and says it's his constitutional duty to stop the medical system from breaking down.
의료 현장의 주역인 전공의와 미래 의료의 주역인 의대생들이 국민의 생명과 건강을 볼모로 집단 행동을 해서는 안 됩니다. 국민의 생명과 안전을 지키는 일은 국가 안보, 치안과 함께 국가가 존립하는 이유이자 정부에게 주어진 가장 기본적인 헌법적 책무입니다.
The comments came on Tuesday as he opened a cabinet meeting with the government exercising its legal authority to order those who've resigned to go back to work. As of the latest briefing on Tuesday morning, a total of 831 trainee doctors have received such orders. If they decide to not comply, their licenses could be suspended. To relieve the current shortages of residences at major hospitals, compensation will be increased for emergency medical service personnel at the regional and specialized emergency medical centers, as well as for emergency medical specialists doing consultations. Additionally, a hospitalized patient emergency care policy support fund will be established to provide additional compensation to specialists who treat hospitalized patients in the place of the absent residents. Anyone who has been affected by the current situation can call 129 and receive help from the government, including legal action. In addition, the government is easing up the entry process to 12 military hospital emergency rooms for civilians. In the meantime, President Yoon has also re-emphasized that the goal to extend the medical school enrollment quota by 2,000 was a must and actually the minimum, despite some claims that it's way too high.
대한민국 의료 역량은 세계 최고입니다. 그러나 환자와 국민들이 지역에서 마주하는 의료 서비스의 현실은 너무나 실망스럽고 어떻게 보면 비참하기 짝이 없습니다. 의료인 여러분, 더 이상 늦출 수 없는 의료 개혁에 동참해 주시기를 부탁드립니다.
The president also reminded the doctors that he's not only trying to raise the number of doctors, but to justly compensate for essential healthcare in rural areas and severe case treatments, while he will take the responsibility for creating an environment where doctors can practice medicine with conviction by reducing legal risks. Kim Jongun, Arirang News.
Shifting gears, Seoul plans to host the third Summit for Democracy next month, continuing the online meeting of world leaders on how to strengthen democratic values and institutions across their borders. South Korea's presidential office said Tuesday that the government will hold a three-day meeting this year from March 18th to 20th. Under the same Democracy for the Future Generation, the summit will feature a ministerial meeting and a roundtable of experts, along with various discussions and workshops. The Summit for Democracy was first launched by United States President Joe Biden in 2021 in order to renew democracy in the U.S. and confront autocracies abroad. The second round last year was co-hosted by South Korea, the U.S., Costa Rica, the Netherlands, and the Republic of Zambia. A Korean victim of wartime forced labor has received a Japanese company's court deposit money as compensation. It's the first time that such a victim has been able to accept payment from an accused Japanese firm. Our foreign affairs correspondent Bae Yoon-ji has this report.
Mr. Lee, who was forced to work at Hitachi Zosen during Japan's colonial rule of Korea, filed a suit against the Japanese company in November 2014. Last December, South Korea's Supreme Court upheld the lower court's ruling and ordered the company to pay him 50 million Korean won in damages, on top of the delayed interest. But Mr. Lee passed away before the top court finalized its ruling. Then on Tuesday, his family finally received compensation from Hitachi Zosen, making it the first time that a forced labor victim has received compensation from a Japanese company. The family withdrew 60 million Korean won, or about $45,000 from the Seoul Central District Court, which was earlier deposited by Hitachi Zosen as a kind of collateral. A number of South Korean forced labor victims have won suits against Japanese companies, but they have not been able to receive payment directly from Japanese firms, as Tokyo continues to claim all issues had already been settled in a 1965 treaty. To resolve the matter and improve bilateral relations with Tokyo, last March, the Yoon administration unveiled a plan to compensate these victims using funds procured through a public foundation instead. Seoul's foreign ministry said Tuesday that this policy will remain in place, while adding that the victim was able to receive deposit money from Hitachi Zosen in accordance with relevant laws.
Our government's stance remains that we intend to pay the damages and delayed interest to the plaintiffs through the Foundation for Victims of Forced Mobilization by Imperial Japan.
Hundreds of thousands of Koreans were forced into labor in factories and mines in Japan before and during World War II. The historical issue remains one of the biggest obstacles in improving relations with Tokyo. 배은지, Arirang News.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has recently presented North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un with a Russian vehicle. Pundits say the gift may represent a deepening of Moscow-Pyongyang relations that could also contravene UN Security Council resolutions. Our North Korean affairs correspondent Kim Jong-sil reports.
Is an old tradition back? Just like Joseph Stalin, who presented Kim Il-sung with a limousine back in 1948, Russian President Vladimir Putin presented North Korean leader Kim Jong-un with a car on Sunday. This is according to North Korea's official Rodong Sinmun newspaper on Tuesday. Kim Yo-jong, Kim Jong-un's younger sister, who practically acts as a de facto spokesperson for him, said the car was a clear indication of the close friendship between the two leaders. The gift isn't a total surprise considering Kim Jong-un showed interest in Putin's car back in September when he visited Russia's Far East. There, he joined the Russian president in the back of Putin's Auto Senate, a massive 7-ton armored limo. Few details were given by Pyongyang about the car except that it was Russian-made, but the Kremlin later confirmed on Tuesday that the car was made by Russian luxury car brand Autos. For leaders around the world, a car is linked directly to their safety. Back in 2018, then U.S. President Donald Trump also showed his presidential Cadillac, nicknamed the Beast, to the North's leader. With concerns rising on arms transfers between Pyongyang and Moscow, the luxury car gift may entail a much bigger concern, a Russian decision not to abide by UN Security Council resolutions on Pyongyang. UNSC resolutions ban member states from the direct or indirect supply, sale, or transfer of luxury goods to North Korea, including cars. A senior official at South Korea's Unification Ministry condemned North Korea on Tuesday for publicly announcing the gift while calling on Russia to realize its responsibility as a permanent member of the UN Security Council. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
The wife of Putin critic Alexei Navalny says Russian President Vladimir Putin is responsible for her husband's death. And that's a claim that U.S. President Joe Biden has echoed. Lee Seung-jae has the latest.
The widow of Russian opposition figure Alexei Navalny has accused Russian President Vladimir Putin of being responsible for the death of her husband, adding she will continue on with her husband's fight. In an 8-minute video posted on her late husband's social media platforms, Yulia Navalnaya on Monday said the Russian leader killed the father of her children and took away the most precious thing. She further accused Russian authorities of hiding Navalny's body in a move to disguise the cause of his death, adding that they're only waiting for traces of another of Putin's Novichok to disappear, referring to a nerve agent allegedly used by Russia's security service. The EU is now looking into fresh sanctions against Moscow over the death of Putin's critic. Germany, Lithuania, and Sweden were among EU nations calling for specific new penalties against Russia. The discussions came during a meeting of 27 EU foreign ministers scheduled before the death of Navalny, where EU's top diplomat Josep Borrell suggested that Russian prison officials linked to Navalny's death could be added to the list of those subject to asset freezes and travel ban. U.S. President Joe Biden also hinted at new sanctions, while also directly blaming Putin for the death of Navalny.
But the fact of the matter is, Putin is responsible. Whether he ordered it or not, he is responsible for the circumstance that put that man in. And he is a reflection of who he is. And it just cannot be tolerated. I said there would be a price to pay.
Meanwhile, Russia says an investigation into the death of Navalny is underway, adding that all due actions are being taken. The Kremlin added that any accusation against its president is both rude and gross, as there is no information on the cause of death. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Also on the international front, the U.S. has shared its own UNSC draft resolution for a temporary ceasefire of the Israel-Hamas war to address violence in Gaza. Washington has earlier resisted calls for a ceasefire. Yoon has more.
On Monday, the United States circulated a proposed UN Security Council resolution that supports a temporary ceasefire in Gaza. The resolution states a temporary ceasefire would be based on the formula of all hostages being released, while also lifting all barriers to provide humanitarian assistance at scale in the Gaza Strip. The draft also warns Israel not to launch a ground offensive in Rafah, stressing that such major military action should not proceed under the current circumstances. This is the second time since October 7th that Washington has proposed a Security Council resolution on Gaza. The first proposal in late October was vetoed by Russia and China. The latest draft comes more than 2 weeks after an initial draft was put forward by Algeria, the current non-permanent Arab member of the Security Council, which demanded an immediate humanitarian ceasefire. That draft resolution was set to be put up for a vote on Tuesday, but U.S. Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield signaled it would be vetoed, saying it would jeopardize any negotiation talks to broker a pause in the war and the release of hostages held by Hamas. The U.S. proposal may fall short of the international call for an immediate ceasefire, but the significance stands in Washington's use of the word ceasefire, which Israel is against. While the U.S. has been ready to protect Israel, the latest change in Washington's wording signals a warning shot to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. International Crisis Group UN Director Richard Gowan also said Israel would now be more concerned by the text Washington drafted, and that it is the strongest signal the U.S. has sent at the UN so far that Israel cannot rely on American diplomatic protection indefinitely. For a resolution to pass, it needs at least 9 votes in favor and no vetoes by the permanent members, the U.S., France, the UK, Russia, or China. It is not immediately clear when or if the U.S. draft resolution would be put to a vote. 이은진, Arirang News.
The Israel-Hamas war is more than just a tragedy for children. So far, thousands of them in Gaza have reportedly lost their lives. Our Yoon, he spoke to an official at a charity organization for children in the occupied Palestinian territory about what the situation is like there.
Since October 7th, over 29,000 people have died in Gaza, and more than 40% of them are children. Jason Lee, Save the Children's country director for the occupied Palestinian territory, says that a ceasefire is the only way to prevent more children from dying.
And again, it's so important because children need to believe that they have a future, that they will survive tomorrow, they'll have a future, rebuild the health facilities, rebuild the schools, rebuild the homes. But the first step is really the ceasefire.
There's also the impact on their mental health.
They see that their homes are being destroyed. They see their families being killed, their communities destroyed. They hear the fighting, they hear the airstrikes, the machine guns, the shelling, the tanks.
He shared the story of a 4-year-old girl whom he met in Gaza in December last year.
We have no idea who she is, how she got there, or where she came from. And she was in such a state of catatonic shock. She wasn't speaking, cold and clammy, really, and we had no idea when she last ate.
He says this is just one story of at least 17,000 children who are estimated to have lost their family. While they have no one to take care of them, humanitarian aid entering the Strip is becoming even more challenging. Rafah is congested with displaced people living out in the open, and access to other regions is not allowed by the Israeli Defense Forces.
Again, we have not been able to get to the north of Gaza. We've not been able to distribute to the middle areas of Gaza. And moving in Rafah is becoming more difficult because it's the congestion. I mean, none of the roads are passable right now. The trucks can't get through. We can't deliver enough supplies, and the people are desperate.
Israel's full-scale ground operation in Rafah means the children will be either killed immediately by the fighting or die from starvation or as a result of public health emergencies.
We already see diarrheal diseases increasing. It's cold, it's wet, they will get pneumonia. And what happens if there's cholera? So all of this will happen to civilians. We will see the morbidity and mortality, especially for children, increase.
70% of injuries have been either a woman or a child. Children are more susceptible to malnutrition and diseases and will die quicker. The lives of Gaza's 1.1 million children depend on an immediate and definitive ceasefire. Yoon, Arirang News.
The rival parties at South Korea's National Assembly each announced today new election pledges to better protect those in need. The ruling People Power Party said that when it comes to preventing vicious crimes, it's punishing for life imprisonment without parole. It would also work to restrict sentence reduction for crimes targeting the socially vulnerable, such as stalking and domestic violence. Meanwhile, the main opposition Democratic Party is pushing for a nationwide system where the state would provide child support to a custodial parent when a non-custodial parent does not carry out his or her duty to do so. The state would then collect the costs from the parent who owes the money. These announcements come with just 50 days left to go until the general election. Household debt in the nation has reached new heights amid continued high borrowing rates. According to the Bank of Korea on Tuesday, household debt rose by 8 trillion Korean won, or nearly $6 million in the final quarter of last year compared to the previous quarter. This is the highest sum on record and comes with a sharp increase in mortgages despite high interest rates and credit card spending toward the end of the year. A spokesperson from the bank said that more people took out mortgages during the period because that's when the supply of housing was concentrated in the capital, Seoul. In other news, researchers here are using AI technology to create industrial robots capable of responding to spoken human commands. Jongun explains.
작업대로 이동.
The robot understands the researcher's words and starts moving.
작업 시작.
물체짓기를 시작합니다.
The robot then moves parts to the workstation and starts assembling them. It understands what people say and carries out their orders. A regular robot transforms into a smart robot when a special artificial intelligence developed by South Korean researchers is installed.
Workers unfamiliar with robots can easily use them, which can improve productivity in the manufacturing industry overall.
Commands can be given not only through voice but also through text. Individuals can program the working process in layman's terms depending on the situation without the need for experts. The artificial intelligence can create the optimal working sequence and movements tailored to the site in a virtual space.
We developed automation tech that understands commands, generates performance order, and executes them simultaneously, a world first for actual application.
AI technology that can easily create speech understanding robots is currently being tested at an electronic parts factory in Cheongju. If the robot's effectiveness is confirmed, it is expected to enable scenarios where humans and robots collaborate as seen in similar scenes in movies. 정은주, Arirang News.
The cold wind strengthened overnight and the weather got colder. Sporadic rain is falling everywhere in these chilly conditions. There's a heavy snow concentration in the Yeongdong area of Gangwon-do province. With a heavy snow warning issued there, the snow is gradually getting stronger, as well as the northeastern mountainous areas of Gyeongsang-buk-do province. It's expected that there will be a snow bomb in this area by tomorrow. There will be more than 50 centimeters of heavy snow in the mountainous areas of Gangwon-do province and up to 30 in the mountainous areas of northeast Gyeongsangbuk-do province. Also, a lot of snow is expected in the central region, including the Seoul metropolitan area. Tomorrow's Seoul will start off at 3 degrees Celsius, Gwangju and Busan 8 degrees. As for the daily highs, Seoul and Chuncheon will get up to 4 degrees, Daegu 7 degrees Celsius. It will rain or snow all over the country until the day after tomorrow, and the snow in the Yeongdong area will continue for a while. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session coming up.